Hello and welcome everybody. Today continues the second lecture about the Shara gambit. When I was a kid, I used to play it many times because this opening line was one of my favorite and very aggressive when I was just young player. And I would like to show one of the games which also very standard, very typical way of how to play with black Shara gambit. d4, d5, c4 and e6, knight c3 and c5, c takes d5, and black is answering c takes d5. After queen a4 check, so don't be surprised with that move. In general, it's only different moves order in which we are getting the similar position, like from the standard variation with e takes d with queen d1 or queen takes d4. So after knight c6, we can reach this position from the different moves order. Let's say d4, d5, c4, e6, and knight c3, c5. After c takes d5, c takes d5. Instead playing queen a4 check, white could capture immediately queen takes d4, and black is winning the tempo. So white's queen has to go d1, e takes d5, queen takes d5, and bishop d7. So, as you can see, we are reaching completely the same position, just with a different moves order. In that situation, as we saw in our previous lecture, quite dangerous for white to move away his bishop from c1. So bishop has to cover white's b2 pawn. In that case, we can realize that white's main plan is to finish very fast development of his king side and make castling. And only in that case, white is having nice chance to fight for advantage. Otherwise, black is bringing all his pieces to the center, taking control over the open files, and thanks to his better development, is having at least very good compensation for a pawn, and in many games this development advantage even crushed white's position. Let's say, what could happen in case white is playing a3, trying to avoid knight b4 or bishop b4. This tempo loss cannot be recommended, because after knight f6, queen d1 and bishop c5, black is bringing all his pieces ready to attack white's position in the center and on f2. So after knight f3, black is bringing his queen to e7, planning to castle his king to the queen side and to bring once again with the tempo his rook to the open file, d open file. e3, long castling, bishop d2. So white somehow still trying to complete development of his queen side. Instead, as I said, white has to play bishop e2 and make his short casting very fast. King b8. In fact, that white planned to bring his rook on c1, so black is making the prophylactic move. So king is standing quite good on b8. And after bishop e2, black is not waiting anymore and starting his kingside aggression by classical g5 move. Why this move is so good? Black is trying to send away white's knight from f3. So g5 is not only helping black to play g4, but more important, takes control over the center squares. And control over the center square, one of the most important in the situation like open position. In generally, control over the center is one of the most important opening principles, as we know. Knight takes g5 is not so great, since after rook g8, black is getting open g file for attacking over the white's position. And after knight f3, rook takes g2, white is not having any good opportunity where to move his king from the center. All black pieces extremely strong pulls towards the white's king. So, white cannot touch the pawn on g5. b4, bishop b6, knight a4, trying to exchange the strong dark square bishop, but black is keeping, of course, all the pieces. Bishop comes to c7. In that case, black is not going to trade any of his active pieces, because, as we know, when you possess your initiative, the trading could be allowed only in case you're getting and you are achieving the additional positional or tactical dividends. So it could be material dividends, it could be positional dividend, but we are not trading pieces for nothing. So we can trade pieces only in case we are having clear intention or clear initiative. Knight c5, g4. Once again, white is not allowing to capture on d7. After knight takes d7, rook takes d7, and let's say white's knight is going somewhere to g1, black is just doubling his rooks over the d file, and unfortunately bishop on d2 is pinned, so white is losing immediately. Once again, the huge development advantage here is a decisive factor for black's successful attack. So white has to keep black's bishop on c8 and play knight h4, but in that case, look, white's knight on h4 is situated in the corner of the board, and according to Tarash, the father of positional play, the knight on the side of the board is a, I would say, weakest square from which knight can attack only very limited number of squares and lacking activity. Bishop c8, once again, black is not allowing white to trade anything. Still, black is intending maybe to play in this position knight d5. White's bishop on d2 is still hanging. Indeed, white decided in this difficult position to play short castling and to get his king out of the center, intending after g3 to bring the knight back on with knight g2, maybe knight f4. Suddenly, the game is going to finish just in one move. I would like you to find this decisive move, after which white resigned. Can you believe white here resigned just after one move? You can ask how it's possible. White is having quite okay position. His knight is quite actively posted on c5. White is somehow trying to continue maybe his initiative on the queen side. On the king side, we don't have any clear targets. Indeed, one move, and this move is queen d6. Double attack over the h2 pawn, and at the same time white's bishop on d2 is gone. So because white has to prevent black from queen takes h2 checkmate, Unfortunately, it leads to a situation where bishop on d2 is lost and the game is over. After g2, g3, queen takes d2, white is losing a piece without any compensation and has to resign. One more classical example of black's play in the Shara game gambit. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3 and c5. c takes d5, c takes d5, c takes d4, queen takes d4, e takes d5, queen takes d5, oops, sorry, knight c6, queen d1, e takes d5, queen takes d5, and bishop d7. Finally, we are reaching the classical setup. e3, in that case, white is already follows the right way, knight f6, so not developing his bishop too early, but trying to finish somehow with his king side. Queen d1, bishop c5, knight f3. And here black is playing queen e7. Keeping both opportunity, also black could play for the long side castling and also for the short side castling. Really, to say, both plans quite dangerous for white. And I would like to tell you that the long side castling is the most popular. Indeed, even I face here quite serious problem when black is castling on the short side and just bring his rooks to the open files d8 and c8. One of my games, even I played this position with white in the ICC simultaneous exhibition a few years ago, continued, and you can understand that I quite a experienced player in that position with white, and even I cannot solve here all the problems after bishop e2. My opponent played short castling, instead classical plan with long castling, which we are going to study later on. Short castling and rook f to g8. First of all, my queen. I have to move my queen somewhere. a3. So right now black is not having clear targets for the bishop. Let's say if bishop goes to f5, so I simply could answer with bishop d2. But black is not having to play so fast, so no worry, just simply plays a5, avoiding my intent of playing b2, b4, and then bringing maybe my bishop to b2 to the active diagonal. Otherwise, my bishop would become very, very passive on c1. I played queen c2, and my opponent simply answered rook a to c8. So, he has already all pieces developed, and more or less we are having position which quite similar to the gambit lines like Evans gambit or even Mora gambit, when there is no any clear threats against my king, but I have real problem of where to put my pieces. My minor pieces are very passive in this situation. I try to escape from this pressure by playing rook d1. My opponent simply answered bishop a7, so intending to bring maybe bishop to b8 and start looking at my king's protection, my pawn chain in the center and on the king side. After bishop d2, he opened his rook with knight a5. And after rook a to c1, started moving pawns after b5, intending b4. I felt here already very unpleasant. I don't see the way where to move my bishops. I don't know how can I move my knight. Trading on e5 would only increase black's pressure over the center squares, and black is still intending b4. I'm under quite strong pressure in that case. So I decided to move my queen out and trying to set some new target, the pawn on b5, after queen b3. But my opponent bravely answered a4, and when I suddenly moved queen b4, bishop c5, that somehow I felt that my queen is not so great placed on b4 anymore. After queen h4, unfortunately white is not having solution anymore. My queen is going to be trapped. Just two moves. After knight g6, I didn't find any solution. Queen g3, bishop g6, queen g5, and after h6 I had to say goodbye to my piece, to my strongest piece. So my queen is gone. And only by luck I escaped from this tough game by sacrificing the full piece after knight d5. So that move, that game once again showed that even strong player can't solve so easily the problem against the Shara game in Gambit. Even quite experienced, and as I know, not only me got such problems, but also the top grandmasters were not always achieving advantage against the Shara game in Gambit line. Indeed, today we continue studying more ideas about the Shara game in Gambit. C takes d5, c takes d4, queen takes d4, knight c6, and once again we are reaching the standard position after bishop d7, and I would like to pay attention to this setup: queen d1, knight f6, knight f3, bishop c5, e3, queen e7. So we can reach in with a different moves order, but you have to remember exactly this setup. So in that case, white is usually playing bishop e2. Indeed, some players could start with a3. White is playing to move his pawn to b4, then brings the bishop on b2, and then white's queen also could go somewhere to c2 or to b3. Indeed, as I said before, white's best strategy is to complete the development of the king side, and only then to start the actions on the queen side. And the next example is quite obviously explain what the reason of the rule which I just explained you a while ago. Long castling. So now, if white is playing bishop e2, that it's already too late. Black is just simply playing bishop h3, and white is going to lose the pawn on g2, since queen on d1 has been attacked by rook on d8. White has to play queen c2, and classical way, we are playing simply king b8, so no need to keep our king on the same file where white's queen is situated, to avoid any tricks, white's trick with b4. After b4, black is playing knight d4, sends to the pin pawn on e4, white has to accept reading, but right now black exchange just already developed white pieces and expand his development advantage. So after bishop takes d4, bishop b2, and rook c8, rook c1, black is increasing the pressure, knight e4. So in that case, development advantage almost leads to the decisive positional advantage for black. So white pieces on the king side still undeveloped. As I like to say, they are still sleeping. So after knight e4, white is not having any clear solution how to solve his problem. Queen takes e4. Bishop takes c3 just simply loses the queen. Bishop e2, of course, black simply capturing the piece on c3. So only move is queen d3, somehow trying to escape from the problems over the pin. But queen d3 is also losing. Let's say cy. Bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, and rook h to d8. Finally, black is completing his development. White cannot move the bishop because his rook on c2 is unprotected. After queen d4, black is playing quite simply. Try to find this move. Rook takes c3, getting rid of white's white's bishop on c3. Black is gaining decisive advantage by using the weakness of white's back rank. So after bishop g4, unfortunately, it's time to call it a day. White's king once again trapped in the center and will be mated after rook d1. So one more game which showed how dangerous black's initiative in this Shara gambit line, and why it's so important for white to forget about counter-attacking by the developing his pieces on the queen side, but immediately white need to protect his position by moving forward his pieces on the king side and making castling, taking his king to the safest place on the chessboard. So I would like to set this starting position once again and to show you that main and I would say most dangerous for black continuation in that case, that when white is playing bishop e2. And classical plan for this, just long castling. So instead of playing short castling, black is playing long castling and posing towards the white's queen to d1. So black is already aiming bishop h3 idea. So white has to decide where to move his king, and the best continuation is short castling, after which black is moving his pawn g7 g5, once again trying to send away white's knight from f3 and to develop his king side aggression, king side attack. Let's say if white is just simply playing something like bishop d2, g4, knight e1, black is just pushing his pawns on the king side. h5, rook c1, king b8. So very classical, careful way. No need to go into the complications. So just making the prophylactics. Black is still intending to push the pawns on the king side. White hardly could stop it. a3, let's say h4, b4, and bishop d6. Black pieces all ready for destroying white's king side. When white's attack on the queen side, I don't see any perspective, any real perspective for that attack. b5 will be met by knight e5. And quite hard for white to find the real targets on the queen side when black is almost there. Black is almost coming with his pawns and pieces. Look, all the pieces looking towards the white's king side. So this position is quite dangerous. That's why, instead of playing bishop d2, today's theory recommend for white, just stop waiting. It's time for counterattack, but counterattack with the sacrificing. So white's main theoretical way for playing this position is to sacrifice back a pawn. So b4, very strong move. Now white is going to sacrifice his pawn for obtaining compensation as open b file, and in that case black's king is also not in so safe place. After bishop takes b2 and bishop b2 or queen b3, white is getting his own attack. So let's say after bishop b2 and g4 and knight d4, also white is having serious threats on the queen side. So now white is intending to play knight b5, queen a4, maybe rook comes to c1, and I can't say any more than black's king is a so safe place. So position becomes very complicated, very complicated. I remember that when I was a quite young player, maybe 11 or 12 years old, that in my chess club we analyzed this position quite carefully, and we came to conclusion that really bishop takes b4 after bishop b2 would lead to the situation where white is achieving his target. So white is stopping black's attack on the king side, and we cannot support our attack on the king side with our dark square bishop. So white's open files b and c and idea queen a4 more significant than black's attack on the king side. Why? Because white's king is quite safe. That's why after b4 we started to analyze quite interesting idea, and I even played the game for that move. After b4, black is not going to capture the pawn. Black is going to sacrifice the pawn. g4. So once again attacking white's knight and not allowing white to start his own counterattack. So after g4, my opponent in the training games which I played answered b takes c5. So obviously, why not to capture the bishop and to achieve two bishops advantage? Indeed, after g takes f3, bishop takes f3 and knight a5, white is having a problem. Black is intending to bring his bishop, let's say to c6. His queen is under threat in that case. Bishop on f3 also has to be protected somehow, and it's not so easy to find the solution. So black is achieving quite strong compensation. Don't forget that already we sacrificed 2 pawns, but our piece is quite nice pose towards the white's position. My opponent decided to play bishop p2, and I played rook g8. Continue pressing white's king side. And here happened something extraordinary because my opponent got in such a panic. He has 2 pawns, but his position is extremely dangerous. I have all my pieces developed. Knight on e5, very strong. The bishop is ready to go somewhere, to h3 or to c6. So he decided to send away my knight from e5 after f4, which was decisive mistake. Why? Because black immediately played bishop c6. That what happened in the game. Aiming the g2 pawn, at the same time aiming the queen on d1, and white is getting completely destroying position in that case. So white's position is totally ruined, even despite the fact that white is having 2 extra pawns and 2 bishops advantage. Black's attack is decisive here. No way to stop it. Queen c2, rook take g1, rook take g2, and the checkmate is coming. Queen e2, same way. Rook takes. And the game is over. So, why I would like to show, why I'd like to just to show this example, because even in Shara gaming, there are so many opportunity for both sides that white is sacrificing his material, black is sacrificing even more material for obtaining the and for keeping the initiatives, for obtaining the strong attack over the best target in the chess game, the king. So for that we are ready to sacrifice the pawns, for that we are ready to sacrifice pieces, continue attacking, keeping the initiative. Once again, this is a most important ideas when you are playing the gambit. That's why my gambit guide is not only based on the theoretical line, but also I like just to show you how you have to think, what your intuition has to say you when you are considering this or that option. So after b4, instead accepting, you see, instead accepting or moving away with my bishop, I decided to counterattack with playing g5 and g4, and black is sacrificing the second pawn for greatest attack, which happened and very successfully finished and in the game which I played. On the next lecture, on the third part of the Shara gaming gambit, we would pay attention more on different ways for white, which I would say today are most significant way for white to play against the Shara gaming gambit. Today I would like to thank you for watching my lecture and see you next time. So follow me. Bye.